This is a story about an enchanted house. It was called Enchanted because it was a place where everything seemed to come right. It looked much the same as all the other houses around. But there lived here, all by themselves, an elephant called Nellyphant, a giraffe called Tiny, and a kangaroo called Joe. In the garden there lived a robin. He was called Bob. And he had a friend who also lived in the garden. He had a nice house of his own under a mushroom. He was a worm, and he was called, quite simply, Worm. But inside the enchanted house, there lived Nellyphant, Tiny, and Joe. Nellyphant sat in her favourite chair in the garden of the enchanted house. She was writing out a recipe for fruit cake. 6 eggs, 1 pound of flour, 6 pounds of fruit, butter, sugar. She was interrupted by Robin, who was sitting in the apple tree.
Chip, 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 chip. I can see far into the distance from this apple tree,
he said knowingly. Yes, I know, dear, said Nellyphant patiently. So you're always telling me. 1/2 pound of glacé cherries, 1/2 pound of groundnuts mixed carefully together.
Chip, chip, chip. I can see Postman Blackbird. He's coming this way. Chip, chip, chip. I think he has a letter for you.
Well, I expect it's only the electricity bill if he has. Nellyphant sounded quite touchy, whereupon Blackbird appeared with a letter, and sure enough it was for Nellyphant.
I told you so. Chip, chip, chip. I told you so. It looks quite exciting. Ooh, it looks like an invitation. Yes, yes. Is it to a party?
Oh, you really are a nosy bird, said Nellyphant, but she was laughing as she agreed it was an invitation. It was someone who lived some way from the enchanted house, but who would like to have Nellyphant, Tiny, and Joe to tea. I have not long moved here, and I do not know many people, so would be delighted to make your acquaintance, she read out. Please come tomorrow, 4 p.m. to tea. Yours respectfully, Brown Mouse. Well, well, said Nellyphant, isn't that kind?
Yes, well, don't care for mice. Don't care for mice at all,
he said.
They eat up all the crumbs that humans put for us. Greedy, I call it. Yes, very greedy. Well, I've got a cable for Mrs. Lion down the road. Suppose I'd better take it. It might be important,
he said dolefully, and he disappeared.
Funny bird,
said Robin.
Very moody, blackbirds.
Whatever shall I wear? Sighed Nellyphant. Oh, I'll just have to wear my sequin collar. It's all I've got. I hope I'll look smart enough. Oh, dear. Oh, well. Tiny came into the garden at that moment.
Don't worry, my dear,
he said kindly.
You look very nice in your sequin collar. And mice are not people to overdress as a rule.
Oh, Tiny, you are a comfort, said Nellyphant. She sounded much happier. By the way, how are your new glasses? Are you getting used to them now?
Oh, as a matter of fact, I am,
said Tiny.
Yes, although I nearly fell down some steps yesterday. Oh, well, just a matter of persevering, I suppose. Ah, there's Joe,
he said as the kangaroo came into the garden.
I say, Joe, we've just got an invitation from Brown Mouse to have tea.
I know,
said Joe.
The blackbird told me. How very gossipy,
said Robin crossly from the apple tree, and everyone laughed. That night, Nellyphant dreamed that she was invited to a ball, and she was the best-dressed elephant there. She held the stage, and it was absolutely wonderful. But it was only a dream, and the next day when she arrived with Tiny and Joe, she was wearing her old sequin collar. The House of Mouse was a very pretty place, sort of old-fashioned, but there was a clock that was very much in evidence. It ticked and tocked in fits and starts. But there was something rather odd about the whole place, it seemed. No one had let them in, but the door had opened automatically on their arrival. They'd walked in, the table was set. So they'd settled down, but so far no one had welcomed them. Suddenly a voice said,
I'll be with you in a minute. There's a magnifying glass on the table.
Nellyphant, Tiny and Joe looked at each other in astonishment. Why a magnifying glass? And the voice seemed to have come from the clock. Very odd indeed.
Don't look so amazed,
said the voice.
Don't you know what a magnifying glass is for? To make things look bigger. Otherwise, how are great big animals like you ever going to notice me?
And from out of the clock there appeared a small brown mouse.
How do you do?
He squeaked.
It was very nice of you to come. I forgot to mention that I live in a clock, not in the house. Far too big for these days. Can't afford the upkeep, you know. Oh, I say, do help yourselves to tea. I had it brought in specially.
So they all had a nice tea, and their host, Brown Mouse, had a lovely big doughnut. He said,
I've asked my brother to come and sing, to entertain you. He's my twin brother, and he's a school teacher. He teaches small mice nursery rhymes.
And before they knew where they were, Brown Mouse's twin brother was singing. Sing a Song of Sixpence, followed by Jack and Jill.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before a king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. Down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before a king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. Down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose. Oh. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got and home did trot, as fast as he could caper. He went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got and home did trot, as fast as he could caper. He went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper.
When he'd finished, he disappeared before the guests had time to thank him.
Very shy, my brother,
Explained Brown Mouse.
but I am very glad you could come. Please come again soon. Goodbye.
And before they knew where they were, he too had disappeared. Back in the enchanted house, Nellyphant, Tiny and Joe discussed their outing. Well, it was a bit odd, I suppose, but it is nice to go out for a change and see how others live, even if they do live inside clocks, said Nellyphant, yawning.
Oh, well, we can't all be conventional, I suppose.
Said Joe. No, said Nellyphant, I suppose not. I suppose not. She was nodding off to sleep.